On this episode of Big Sexy Chat, Crystal and Murph are joined by sex industry veteran badass Kim Ayers, and they're dishing the juice all about female ejaculation. Without further ado,
hi, welcome to Big Sexy Chat. I'm Crystal.
I'm Murph.
We're just two rad fatties sitting around,
Chewing the fat.
Twice a month, we'll be chatting about current events,
Hot topics.
sex toys, fat politics, fat community, cannabis, CBD, you name it, we're going to talk about it. We are very excited to have you a part of our community. Welcome and enjoy. Hey, welcome back to Big Sexy Chat. My name is Crystal, and I'm here with my lovely co-host, Murph. Hi, Murph.
Hi.
So I'm so excited to have Kim Ayers with us today. We have some sex toy party / sex education royalty with us today. We're so excited to have you. Welcome, Kim Ayers.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here. Anytime I can talk about sex and get the word out there, it's a good day.
Awesome. Tell everybody a little bit about you and your tell us about your history. We want to hear the dirty good stuff.
It's really good, let me tell you. So basically, married 7.5 years, boring. I mean, he was nice and everything, but just kind of didn't want to be adventurous. So I got divorced in 1987. I met somebody I call the smut hound, who turned me on to all the sex stuff, which I had always had an interest in. But when you're married to somebody who's boring, kind of only goes one way. So he turned me on to every public sex toys, strip joints, porn stars, and porn. So this was 87. So everybody mark your calendars. That was way before the internet. So we hung out, whatever, fuck buddies for a long time. And then in 1992, I was inspired actually at a G-Spot workshop to open my own store. So in November 93, I left my job at Harvard to sell rubber dicks to girls and opened a store in Brookline, Massachusetts called Grand Opening. Get it? People are like, you still have your signs up? I'm like, that's the name of the store. So I opened November 93 and no turning back after that. So I sold it in December 05 because owning a business is a lot of responsibility. And my MO on the planet was just to teach about sex and all that instead of like worrying about payroll and insurance and all those other things that you have to deal with when you own a business. Taxes, just all that. So basically, I sold the store and then I moved out to California in 06 because, like I say, I have an addiction I have to deal with, and it's called motorcycle riding. So I'm a pretty hardcore motorcycle rider, so I can ride all year round here. Yay. Instead of in Boston when it's only a 5-month season. So being the center of the universe for sex toy land here in the US, the Los Angeles area had a lot of opportunities and continues to do so. So I started working for several major manufacturers in my time. And let's see, Pipe Dream Products, Topco, small companies, big companies, home party companies, a brand manager, and just a lubricant company and a whole bunch. So I continue to do this work in the business. I do a lot of product consulting. So if somebody's like, oh, I've got an idea for a product, I'm like the go-to person to talk to about that because I have experience in all aspects of a sex toy, of just like the life of a sex toy, like manufacturing, bringing it in from China, which is where a majority of them are made. And just the whole, like I say, lifespan of a sex toy, what to do to recycle it and everything. So yeah. So there's a whole lot. I absolutely love it. I'm as crazy passionate today as I ever have been about it. I always say there's never a dull moment in the sex world.
Your enthusiasm definitely comes through the screen.
It's so amazing. I get people that ask me questions. They're like, oh, I have a question for you. You've probably heard it before. And I go, yeah, but not from you. So it's a new question.
Sure, yeah.
That fascinates me. I walk the walk and talk the talk. I've done sex work. I'm pro-dom, just product reviewing. I write tons of reviews. I recently signed on to be the sex toy pleasure products person for Adult Video News, AVN, which has been around for quite a while. And I've got tons of reviews, extras. I've been reviewing stuff for well over a decade with them too. And, but I'm just going to be doing AVN now, and I will be doing a ton of work for the big January show in Las Vegas. We're the granddaddy of
Yes,
them all.
it
So
is.
that's all my department. I'm pretty excited about it. I've been doing it for the past couple of years, but even more so now.
I think it's funny
Crazy.
how that show overlaps a little bit with all the engineers coming to town, the CES people, which, I'm here in Silicon Valley where all the nerds live. And it's so funny to see the end of one and the beginning of another, but there's definitely a little overlap.
Right. Yeah, I can go into all about the history of that too, which is pretty fascinating. It started when VHS, it's in Las Vegas, when VHSs came out. So that was like 84, I think it was. And so that really, really significantly changed the way you could watch porno. You didn't have to go to a theater anymore. So the people, I think it was Sony Betamax who said, hey, let's invite the porno people because they're going to be our major consumers. So that became a huge segment of the show, so much that it almost like overran CES. Because if you had a CES badge, you could easily get into the adult section where, of course, everybody wanted to go. And
Yeah.
then in 1999, I think it was Paul Fishbein, who owned AVN at the time, said, hey, I can do my own show and have all those people come to it. So that's how that started, the AVN, which is Adult Entertainment Expo. That's when that started. So it's been going on its own for quite a while, and it's been going parallel and not parallel with the CES show. So
Yeah.
it's always in January because it has to be. That's when everybody knows when it is.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, sometimes it's overlapped. Like last year, it overlapped, or the year before. I don't know. It kind of blurs when you've been going since 1997. The show kind of blurs into each other. That's for sure.
I want to say two things real quick. First of all, everybody in the world needs to give a big, huge thank you to the adult industry because we are the reason why the internet is where it is today in 2024. Porn people, the adult toy people, they've always been on the cutting edge, and we have all of them to thank for bringing us to where we are now because everybody wants to deliver video fast to all the people. We know there's a million customers for porn, and it's because of them that we all need to say thank you so much for doing all the hard work in the very beginning.
Absolutely. And yet
And
we
the set,
still get political on how dicey it is.
oh yeah, and then Project 2025 wants to,
It's
yeah.
scary. Well,
Anyway,
there's already Festus Sosta, which is also, which is
yes,
basically you
yeah,
can't advertise any services that have anything to do with sex, nor on a lot of platforms can you advertise anything like a sex toy. But
I
yet,
know.
if it's something that helps men with erectile dysfunction, it's all over social media. But God forbid you promote anything that supports women's sexuality. Why? Because we are powerful.
Too
Women's
powerful for
sexuality.
them.
I do so many classes and tell these women, I go, we topple governments with what we
Yep,
have between our legs. And,
yep,
and you seem kind of like, what? And then when you start thinking about it, it's like, yeah, that's how much power we have. And that's the
it
reason
is.
why they want to keep us down because we're really powerful.
I just
That's,
had I had my boobs smashed. I had a mammogram,
uh-huh.
and the tech and I were talking about. Can you imagine if men had to put their balls in a vice like this?
Oh my
How
God.
many? There would be so many other options besides getting your boobs squished because they, of course, the penis and the balls are so important. But before we get going into G spot and female ejaculation,
Yeah.
because that's the topic of today's podcast, I think it makes sense to give Deb Sundahl some love. I know she's passed, but she used to be the amazing teacher of the G spot and female ejaculation, and she even came to my store a couple times and taught a class. And she's the goddess, amazing woman who was really she was very passionate about making sure women knew all about their genitalia. I remember she just had this great video of this woman named Elaine in Reno whose G spot was very close to the opening of her vagina. And so when they had it on the video, you could actually see the G spot and everything all working together. It was beautiful. And anyway, all the love to Deb Sundahl.
Well, funny you should bring her up because when I got turned on to all the sex stuff, again, before the internet, there was a magazine on our backs that came out of San Francisco and it was called Entertainment for the Adventurous Lesbian. And it really showed real, I put that in quotes because like real lesbians. I'm like, how do you define that? But anyway, so it was basically like butch femme and butches and stuff being sexual, and it was a smut magazine, and it was totally awesome. She was one of the editors, along with Honey Lee Cottrell. Susie Bright was in there, and Nan Kinney. So my lesbian friends turned me on to that magazine, and I'm like, oh my God, I love this magazine. I want to write for them. So while I was working at Harvard University, I was writing for On Our Backs magazine. So Deb Sundahl went as Fanny Fatale as the editor. Well, she came out with the video, How to Female Ejaculate, back in 1992 on VHS. And then she was doing some touring around the country to promote the video and do workshops. So she was in Boston. This was around Columbus Day weekend. She was in Boston, and there were 2 feminist bookstores in Boston, and she wanted to present there. Well, guess what? Neither one wanted her to present because it was a woman talking about sex and they couldn't deal with it. So she presented at the gay men's bookstore called Glad Day. Well, the next night she was presenting at Del Williams' apartment in New York City. Del Williams is the founder of Eve's Garden, the first female-friendly sex toy store that opened up in 1972. So she was presenting there with a hands-on workshop. So I went to that while I was driving down to New Jersey to visit family over the weekend. So I went, and it was a hands-on workshop. And then it took me a moment to put together that Fanny Fatale, I knew that wasn't her real name, was really Deb Sundahl. I was like, wait a minute, I write for you. So we had this instant connection. And so she shows the video, and then it was time to like spread them in front of a mirror with the speculum to really see where the G-spot was, right? So everybody's kind of looking at each other, and this cute little blonde girl raises her hand and goes, I'll go. So she goes in front of the mirror. She squiggles out of her tight little blue jeans, slides them down, puts the speculum in. And, of course, her G-spot was cute and blonde. So I saw it, and I'm like, you know what? Enough of this. And so I just kind of went in front of a mirror, and did it myself, right? And Deb Sundahl comes by, and she goes, wow, you have a really big and meaty G-spot. And I looked at her and I said, that's because I'm a big and meaty girl.
I love it. Yeah, she was amazing.
Like, there it is. And then the conversation at the end of the workshop wound up being, why did you go to the gay men's bookstore to present? And that's when I learned that neither of the feminist bookstores wanted to have her. And I said, you know what? We could use a women's sex toy store in Boston. Clouds parted, bolt of lightning came down, and I said, I could do that. So
And
then I went back to my 2 lesbian friends in Manhattan, and said, I'm going to open a women's sex toy store in Boston. And they said, if anybody can do it, it's you. And the rest is history.
I think it's so crazy how there's still a question. Does the G-spot exist? Yeah. And, women don't really squirt. They pee. No.
Right.
So much misinformation. I'm like, this is my lived experience, people. Okay. How can you tell me, no, that doesn't exist? I can tell you for sure it exists. I've known about it since I was about 16, but it's just still so much. I know it's because people in the patriarchy are afraid of very powerful women like all of us here. And there's just so much. Why is there still so much misinformation about it?
Well, it's a women in power thing for sure. Well, first of all, it was discovered. Okay, there's air quotes. Catch them. Catch those air quotes. Discovered in 1944 by Dr. Ernst Grafenberg, right? Hence G for G-spot. And it was coined G-spot by Beverly Whipple when she wrote her book with, I think, 3 or 4 other people that came out, I think, in around 1994 called The G-spot. And that was a really educational book. And I still think it's one of the best because the first half is all education about it. And the second half is kind of more stories about it. But you learn so much in that. I really like that book. I'm assuming it's still in print. I'm not sure, but it's really, really good. So the G-spot, that's the title of the book. So that's why it's called the G-spot. So he discovered it in 1994. And what amazes me, I mean, I can tell you so many stories about the medical community and the G-spot and female ejaculation. What else do you want to hear? Do we want to go down the medical path or the how-to or the what or the when and where?
I think the 101. Like,
yes.
I think our listeners need to kind of just, what is it? How, what does it do? All the things.
How do I find it?
Sure. Okay. So what I like to demonstrate, and anybody who's listening can easily do this at home. No, you don't have to take your pants off, so don't worry. Okay. So make the letter C with your hand. Okay. So the letter C. Okay. What's that? All right. Now raise your thumb, the first knuckle of your thumb. So it almost looks like, guess what? A G. Okay. Now, how to find the G spot is if you flip it, and if you were to put the top of your thumb on the clitoris, where your bent index finger is where the G spot's going to be. It's just like a little knuckle, maybe knuckle and a half inside the vagina. It's really close. And this is kind of no fail, like when you do this position wise, for sure. It's also why I have a hard time with a lot of rabbit vibrators with the rabbit at the bottom and then like the G spot curve, like about 4 inches away. It's like, no,
Exactly. Yeah.
no. So it's very close to the vaginal exit entrance. And what it is it's around the urethra. Now, the urethra is the hole through which you urinate. Now, sometimes, okay, I always recommend get that mirror, put it between your legs, see what it looks like there. Don't be shy. You can do it in privacy of your own home. Put plenty of light on it. Now, a lot of times when you open your legs, kind of see sort of vaginal opening, but maybe not so much more than that. But what you do to see where your urethra is and G spot is to push out. And what it'll do, if you can't see it right away, is it'll poke out a little bit. So you'll see it and it's a hole. So it's not the vaginal hole, but it's the urethral hole. So the urethra is right there. Now, technically, when you go to touch the urethra, wash your hands before, whatever, it'll feel like a rabbit nose. So it'll feel a little rounded around the urethral opening. All right. So it'll have a little bit of a different consistency. Now, what you can do too to check, this is the G spot area, is you can run your finger around the vaginal barrel and up towards the front, like the top front is where you'll feel like this rabbit nose. So that's the urethra. Now, upon stimulation of that area, what happens is that as you'd mentioned, the sponge, it's called the paraurethral sponge. You break it down. Paraurethra means around the urethra. So it's a sponge tissue that goes around the urethra and it provides a really cool function too. So what happens with a lot of women, and it's not all of them, but I think anybody can learn how to do this. I was actually taught by a guy how to shoot off because he got turned on by it and we watched videos and I'm like, wow, that's a pretty cool party trick. I want to learn how to do that. So with stimulation of that spongy tissue, and sometimes it can happen clitorally too. It really depends on how your body responds to it. You can stimulate the spongy tissue. Now, the spongy tissue, here's where it gets really important, fills up with fluid and it has a really awesome function. Do you know what it is? Why it does that? All right. This is really good. Okay. It fills up with spongy tissue and surrounding the urethra so that when you're fucking and pounding against the urethra, it won't get irritated. It's padded. So that's the function. That's why a lot of people, well, back in the days when people didn't have sex before they got married, the women would come home with a UTI, urinary tract infection, because their urethra was being beat up by fucking a lot. So it was called honeymoon's disease because they didn't have time each time to build up the fluid around their urethra. So that can contribute to a UTI for sure because the tube is kind of getting jostled around there. And that's what happened. So that fluid will fill up in the urethra. Now, with further stimulation, which can be mental or that's a whole nother story, actually. But it can, with the fluid. Okay, now what happens is a lot of times, and I know this happened to me, and whenever I teach a class on this, it happens all the time. So women will be having penetrative sex or whatever gets them to the point that they get congested. It's called, that's actually the medical term, congested. The paraurethral sponge fills up and in your mind, you will feel, oh my God, I need to pee. And you'll go to the bathroom and go pee and nothing will come out. And I can't tell you how many women were nodding their heads or nodding their heads going, yeah, that's happened to me. Reason why pee doesn't come out is because pee comes out of the bladder. The sensation of being full and congested is the sponge. So it is not the bladder. So that's the big thing, is that you feel congested, but pee doesn't come out because it doesn't come out of the bladder. Then when you realize, oh, okay, I know what this means. It means I'm ready to shoot off because I'm so full of fluid. Now comes the fun part, is when you shoot off. Now, this is the thing. Some women do this naturally. Some women, can control it. Some women can't. Some women, that's their response to penetrative sex or just sex all the time, is they wet the bed. Wet the bed. Now, this is the whole thing, because a lot of times partners don't know what it is. The women don't know what it is. Every time we have sex together, you wet the bed. So they think it's a urine problem when it's not. How you know the difference is that it doesn't look like urine. It doesn't smell like urine. It's not colored like urine, although the scent can change during the menstrual cycle and hormone levels. So sometimes it can be a little stronger, sometimes not so much. Sometimes it can be clear. Sometimes it can be a little milkier. Again, it usually gets milkier right before your period and stuff. So it can have different scents. It will not be yellow. There's only 2% of urea in it. So only 2% urine, which is the same amount that's in sperm and ejaculate, 2%. So it's not going to be yellow. This is the big thing. This is the big difference. Now, I know personally when I was learning how to, I had done it previously with some other partners, but I didn't realize what it was. But when I was with my friend that was teaching it, he was a former boss of mine too. So yeah, we had a great sex life too. It was great. Anyway, so so how I would orgasm would be pulling up and inhaling like this. And so he was using his fingers going push, 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 push. And I was like, push. Oh, okay. So I had to kind of rethink the way I would release. And that's when it was like releasing. Okay. And then it would be, I'd push. And then lo and behold, like the first time I did it, I made like a little about 10-inch wide little wet spot on the bed. And he's like, hey, you did it. It was like,
Yeah.
whoa.
I used to tell women all the time, you're probably ejaculating a little bit all the time, even if you aren't aware of it. If you get out of your bed and there's like you said, like a 10-inch wet spot, that's likely your body was starting to, it starts to come out a little bit as you get more and more excited. And then maybe it doesn't gush, but it just it's like dribbling out. So when you get out of bed and there's that big wet spot, that's from you and that's from your pleasure and your enjoyment. And people are like, what? Yeah, it's probably just you ejaculating just a tiny little bit. But Kim, does everybody have a G spot?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. So it's a matter of acknowledging it and feeling it. Like I say, just doing that little research, you can do it yourself with your finger around the vaginal barrel. You can feel that area. And the thing is when you do any kind of sexual discovery is to be really aware of it. Like, just don't, like, you're sticking in a tampon, like, okay, I didn't feel it. All right. You're not going to feel it that way. But if you're aware of like, oh, that's what that feels like there. Oh, and that's it. Well, oh, this surface feels a little bit more, less muscular, like that's definitely the G-spot area. I know you have the wondrous vulva puppet in front of you, made by my pal, Dory Lane. So we love those. She definitely keeps the G-spot in there for sure.
Something I think I always thought had to be was that you had to stimulate the G spot to have squirting. And so we were gifted some vibrators and toys from WeVibe and a womanizer. And we got one of these toys. And Kim, I need you to talk to whomever that you talk to about, the products and all those types of things. Us fat people need longer handles. But I digress. So this toy is a clit stimulator toy, and I am squirting like I've never squirted before.
Oh,
And
there you
I
go.
think it is that bearing down and like having that, knowing that that's the muscle and the pressure and that sort of thing. But I had always believed that you had to have that sort of inserted stimulation. So tell me a little bit about the other types that you were talking about as well.
Yeah, it's definitely like whatever works for you, And so, which to me is the motto of sex anyway. Do whatever works for you. There's no right or wrong, that's for sure. Dory Lane, the maker of the Wondrous Vulva puppet, she had a bunch of videos out. This had to be 93, 94, maybe 95, House O' Chicks. And one's about the G spot. And it's a great informative one. And she just gets off on a little clitoral pocket rocket, which was the go-to for a number of years. And and that makes her squirt in that video. Sure, maybe you can track down the video somewhere, but anyway. So yeah, so it just really depends on what works for you, because the thing is, the body does amazing things when it comes to sex. This is the rule of thumb, okay? All sex is based on reproduction. All sex, okay? All sex. The only thing that has nothing to do with reproduction is, drumroll please, the clitoris. Exactly. Yay! And we have it. So this is the thing. All sex is based on reproduction. So when you start getting turned on by using something for clitoral stimulation, all the hormones start kicking in, all the endorphins start kicking in, and all the body starts saying, hey, get ready for sex. Better, surround that urethra with some spongy tissue and let's fill it up, make it really nice and safe. And so the release that you have in orgasm, and that's another thing I want to mention too, is that release of the fluid. Now, also too, is ejaculation is not necessarily connected to orgasm. This is something, a lot of people are like, oh, I want to orgasm and I want to ejaculate. It's like, okay, first of all, take both of those out of what you just said, because when you try to have an orgasm, it's not going to happen. So that's a big one. And then the thing is with ejaculation, I mean, what, like I said, the big mental thing is to get over that thing. I'm going to pee. I'm going to wet. Throw down, well, towels kind of don't really work because they just absorb it. But, a bed chuck or something, they have lots of fluid safe surfaces you can put down. But just don't fucking do it. Do it in the woods, Go do it somewhere where it doesn't matter. Do it in the garage. I mean, it doesn't matter. Don't do it on the bed. Do it in the bathroom. Oh, one time I was, this is so great. I was shooting off like crazy. And I was in a bathtub and I actually lifted my legs up so that my vagina was heading straight up. So it was like a fountain coming out, right? And so it just really, it made a beautiful lot of fluid in the bathtub. And then when I went to get it, move around in the bathtub, it made these incredibly great body farts. It was so great.
You're
So,
hilarious.
and that was totally shooting off in the bathtub. It was great. So yeah, try it in the bathtub. Then you really don't have to worry about getting anything wet,
And use your shower massager at the same time. But Kim, I think people assume, because they watch a lot of porn, that when we squirt, it's going to go way across the room. And sometimes it does. But other times it just kind of dribbles out. They're both the same to me. They both feel wonderful. One doesn't feel better than the other, but I know sometimes our partners get a little focused on, okay, I'm going to make you squirt across the room. You don't have to do that, right? Not everybody can do that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, anytime a partner has a demand, it really pisses me off. So that's because I don't squirt all the time. Menopause kind of messed it up a little bit. I was much more squirtable before menopause. And that's kind of, some people say it makes a difference, some doesn't. But then again, everybody's different. So mine, I've noticed a difference. Sometimes I'm with a partner and they can just touch me right at the hot spot and it's waterworks. And it's like, gee, I wish my fingers could do that too. I mean, it's just really weird. There's this one person's instant. I'm like, how does that happen? But anyway, so yeah, so that's, it's just try it. I mean, it's kind of, I'm convinced that anybody can learn how to do it, but it's kind of, don't try to do it. Let yourself, okay, this is a big thing, is so many women would enjoy sex if they would just let go. Let go. It's really something. I'll talk to these women because I do a lot of sex coaching and stuff. It's like, oh, I've never had an orgasm. I'm like, why? They go, because I fear letting go. I'm like, letting go of what? And boy, they hate to get backed up into that corner because they're like, letting go of control. I'm like, why do you need control? And I just keep poking and poking and poking. I'm like, if you're with somebody you know and trust, what is there to be worried about? Why do you have to be in control? And stuff. And sometimes, a lot of times when I talk to them, they'll be like, oh my God, I let go the other night. It was the most amazing thing. Well, yeah. And that's when you can shoot off a lot of times, is when you just let go. It's okay. Let go.
Because I think women get in the bedroom and they think a lot of times, I got to pick up the dry cleaning, got to drop off the kids, don't forget about soccer, got to make cupcakes, bloody, body, bloody, bloody, all the things, right? And then if we're having sex with men, they can often just be very focused on one thing and not a million other things. And so it's really about you. I have to get myself into that space. Like, Crystal, let it go, let it go, let it go. For the next half an hour, we're just going to focus on sex. And that's it. I'm not going to think about all the shit I feel like I have to do. And that's what a lot of women who have sex with men or women, I know that that's what our heads are going crazy, right? We have this internal conversation that's insane.
Right. And put your fucking phones and all computers and electronics in another room with a locked door. I mean, this is a whole big thing. Oh, no, no, it can wait. It can wait. Pack the kids off to your auntie's house. Do that. Disconnect from the world. But, and then we can kind of get into the whole like set up the situation and everything. But yeah. So that totally has a lot to do with it of letting go. I've got some funny female ejaculation stories if you want to hear.
Please, yeah.
Okay, so let's see. I've got some good ones. So the boss, the former boss who really liked it, he was working at a different location, and it was the summer, and we'd talk real dirty and stuff. And I thought, ooh, I'm gonna send him some panties that I've shot off in. So I put him in a plastic bag, and zipped it, and blah blah blah, and mailed it to him, and then and he got them, but it wasn't for a couple days after that he opened it up, and it was really hot out. I opened it up, and it was like, what?
Oh, I can only imagine. Ew.
That was kind of a little strong. Let's see. So I was, so there's an organization that I'm actually a charter member of back in 1997 called the ISWISH, International Society for the Study of Women's Sexual Health. And I was asked to join by a number of prominent doctors because I have a skill set that a lot of them don't have. More on that later. And so I was at an ISWISH meeting, and somebody from up in the pulpit giving the presentation said they doubted that the G-spot and female ejaculation existed. And I was seething. The year prior, there were 3 gals that, I kind of hit it off with certain people at these conferences and stuff. And we were talking about female ejaculation. I'm like, yeah, well, I can demonstrate it. And they're like, really? I'm like, yeah. Come here. So it was during a big banquet. So I went around it was at a hotel. I went around all the rooms on the side of the big conference banquet center and found a room that was unlocked. We all went in there. It was like where the linens were and shit. I'm like, okay, now look, watch, look at, and boom, shot off. Right. And they're like, holy shit. I'm like, yeah, pretty cool. Huh. Right. So they're like, yeah. So then the year later was the guy in the pulpit saying it wasn't happening like this. And so I went out for, the breakout, and I'm standing there with 2 gynecologists and I think a sex therapist and one of the gals that was in the room the year before. And they're like, yeah, I don't think female ejaculation exists. And my friend says, well, Kim can demonstrate it. She does it. And it's like, and they look at me and I'm like, yeah, actually I do. And if you want, I'm happy to show you. And they were kind of like, the guy that it was all men, of course, and 3 men. So I'm like, just let's at lunchtime, I can show you. So lunchtime starts rolling around a couple minutes before I go to the ladies' room just to prime up the pipes because I wasn't going to give them the pussy show without dollars getting thrown at me. So I go to the room, right? And I had taken off my nylons because they were kind of ripped. So I didn't have I had a dress on. So I put a towel down on the edge of the bed and I said, okay, I'm going to show you. So one of the gynecologists, he grabs a chair and he goes, I want to see this up close. So he looks up close. So I put the towel down and, since I had the pipes already primed up, it was like, and then arc comes out. Thought, okay, that was enough. So then I stand up and the other gynecologist, I'm holding the towel in my hand, like pretty close to my chest. The other gynecologist looks, he goes, are you sure that wasn't urine? And I said, if it was urine, it would be yellow and you would smell it. And he was looking at me like I had just performed some magic trick. He could not comprehend that happened. And once you get the pipes going, I had to do a little more. I said, you know what? Let me show you again. So I did that and I showed it again. They were stunned. They just like I said, they thought they saw a magic trick. So I showed them. So they're believers now. So it's like, okay, that's how you get the word out. And then the other guy who was the shrink, he's like, were you turned on to do that? I'm like, not really. Were you? But that was kind of like over the line question. But oh, well, I just had to ask. So then another time, also medical community. Actually, I've got tons of those, as I said, was I was getting, I had an indirect inguinal hernia. So I was in the OR and not knocked out or anything yet, but I had the needle in my arm. My arms were strapped down and stuff. And so they were doing the prep thing. And this was at a hospital. A friend of mine was a doctor there. So he knew all the nurses, he knew the anesthesiologist, blah, blah. So anesthesiologist is at my head. The nurses are asking, oh, so what do you do for work? I'm, I own a sex toy store. I do a lot of teaching. And I said, it always amazes me how much the medical community doesn't know about things when it comes to sex. So the doctor, the anesthesiologist who I couldn't see, was kind of like this good old boy from Georgia kind of guy. So I'm there with my arm strapped. They said, so for example, Dr. So-and-so, what did they teach you in school about female ejaculation? There was no counting back from 10. There was nothing. He put that bitch out real fast, right? So then my doctor friend after, he said the nurses they said he turned beet red
Good.
and like this. And so, first I laughed and I thought, wait a minute. I did not ask, what is your experience with them? I was asking as a consumer of the medical practice, what did they teach you? He should have said, they don't teach us anything. Count back from 10.
Right.
That was another thing. God, there was another one. So I was going to this gynecologist, prominent one in the Boston area. And I asked her, I'm like, what do they teach you about female ejaculation? She goes, nothing. She goes, in fact, I had a patient come in the other day who said she wet the bed every time she had sex. So I prescribed her urinary incontinence meds. And so doctors hate it when you call them on their shit. So I said, oh, did you ask her for a sample? And she was like, just kind of looking down, like, kind of, how dare you ask me that? I said, you know what? I can demonstrate that. And I'd be more than happy to come in before office appointment hours and show that it happens and stuff. And I could see her kind of tightening up and going, no, that's okay. And I thought, you know what? I don't want to see you ever again just because you didn't support it. Now, fast forward to the present. And I founded a Los Angeles area group of practitioners in various aspects of sexuality. And we meet once a month. And this gynecologist, young gal who just, has been in practice for a very short time, blah, blah, blah. She said, gynecologists get absolutely no training in sex education.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
I know there's a lot of people that have their jaws drop down on the floor right now.
Yep.
No education. She goes, I had to educate myself on the construction or whatever, or the anatomy of a clitoris. They don't even teach that.
So, Kim, speaking of medical questions, what is ejaculate from women made from? What is it if it's not pee?
Nectar of the gods.
Yes, it's goddesses.
Absolutely. There's, I know a lot of people have researched it. And unfortunately, I don't have that at the tip of my tongue, so to speak, of what it is, other than the 2% urea. Creatine, I think, is in it. I think, obviously, water's the main ingredient for sure. And then the rest of it is science oriented. I know creatine, urea. Yeah, but it's the small percentages of the other stuff. It's mostly water and nectar of the goddesses for sure.
It's not for people who don't have an experience with it. It's not as like when you see male ejaculate, you just know, okay, that's male ejaculate. It can be a little more deceiving, I guess, because it's not all thick and,
for
whatever.
Sure.
It's clear usually, or maybe tiny bit of color if you squirt on a white towel. But usually it's just clear and it doesn't smell like pee at all.
Exactly. That's the big part of it. It doesn't smell like pee and or yellow. Yeah. I mean, in all the times I'm shot off, it's like not yellow, like at all. I mean, like not even like the tinge of it. So even though 2%, I mean, you think of what's 2%. Yeah. I mean, it's like,
is it
milk?
Is it coming from the Skene's gland? Is that the thing?
So this is the thing. Most of it drains through the urethra. So the urethra is basically like the major channel pathway,
which is where pee comes through.
Exactly.
That's why it might have a little
get confused with it. Now the Skene's glands are two small glands on either side of the urethra that they say you can see with the naked eye, but they're probably like really, really small and you really have to get in there. There's also something like 100 other little openings all around the urethra that it can come out of as well. But those are kind of like microscopic, kind of like your skin, and your pores and everything. So the majority of it does come out of the urethra. Skene's glands you really have to look at it, but it comes out that way too.
Now, this is a fun topic, Kim, but you've done this, you've done sex stuff for decades. So is this your favorite topic to talk about? And if not, what is?
My favorite topic is sex because it's too vast to just name one. This is definitely one of them. I mean, I totally love talking about my personal experiences because I think it normalizes a lot of crazy stuff out there. I mean, it all fascinates me, as you know. So I don't really have any particular one. I mean, this one I like because there needs to be so much more education around it, as opposed to like, how do I do butt fucking, and stuff. So I think that this one is definitely one of the more serious, if I can put quotes around that too, conversations, because it's so misunderstood and not taught anywhere in schools. So it's I mean, look at that. Gynecologist doesn't even freaking know what it is. So like, how bad is that? So yeah, so this one I definitely has a lot to do with it, for sure.
Well, and I'm curious because you have so many different types of toys. You used to own a store, you've done all this education. What is your favorite sex toy?
One that I own. Yeah. I'd say anything. I'm a big inside gal, so I like
No,
the
no clitoris?
not so much, I know we had to everybody gets taught the clit is it, and if you don't get off on the clit, then you have a problem. And me, it's like whatever works for you. I started having sex when I was 15, and it wasn't until I got nailed from behind when I was 18, like vaginally, that it was like, whoa, like it was totally a different response. And that's what set it off for me. And that's like a big way to stimulate the G spot. So that was like a big turn for me for sure. So yeah, so it's what works for you. Now I know we talked earlier about the politics of clitoral, designating the clitoris as like the one and only hotspot. The person that I got into the hot and heated debate with, and who I constantly had a hot and heated debate with, was our dearly departed Betty Dodson, who was the clit is it. And I'm like, no, 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 no. And she also didn't believe in female ejaculation, although I showed it to her countless times. That's pee. I'm like, no, Betty, it's not. Look, and stuff. So that was an ongoing feud,
That's funny.
family feud we had, the two of us.
Of all the people, that's so funny. So, yeah, okay. What about toys that have that G spot curve? Is that like? Do you recommend that to people that kind of like have the come hither sort of angle to it?
Absolutely, because that does provide direct stimulation. You can also angle a straight toy to hit it, but I really like that curved bend. One of the original vibrator to stimulate the G spot was invented by Marty Tucker back in probably maybe the late 70s, maybe early 80s. And basically he put the motor of the vibrator up in the top in like an egg shaped shape with a straight shaft. So that was the first kind of G-spot vibrator there because it was curved and it had the motor at the top. Well, I'll tell you, that shape is still one of my favorite shapes because A, being a big G-spot gal, I love it. B, it's hard. It's a hard plastic one. So you can kind of like really hook it around your pelvic bone, your pubic bone, and the G-spot and really kind of get it in there. So I love anyone that's got a G-spot curve to it. And no clit stim. I'm not a big rabbit kind of gal. Don't tell anybody that. But
Right. Kim, I know you remember this era of sex toys, and they all look like a missile or like a arrow. And so it'd have the little dial at the very bottom, and at the tip would be really nothing going on up there. And then the vibration would happen down here where it's in your hand and nowhere near your clitoris or your G spot. It's like, it's not why vibrating down here is not going to do anything for anybody.
I'll tell you, I can tell in a second if a man's designed a sex toy. Boom. It's like, okay, guy designed that.
I know. Thank God there's a lot more women now designing sex toys.
Big time. Yeah, that's pretty monumental and pretty amazing.
Okay, 2 rapid fires. You ready?
Let's hear it.
Morning sex or afternoon delight?
Afternoon delight.
Birthday suit or lingerie?
Birthday suit. I turned my mom on to sleeping naked. She'd always worn something. I'm like, Mom, dude, totally, go sleep naked. She no turning back after that. She's like, oh, I feel so good. I'm like, I know. That's what I keep telling you. I'm so used to it that I traveled to France to see family. Like I said, I have a friend. I traveled to France with my brother, and I realized I forgot to pack pajamas. So I'm not like gonna go naked in front of my brother. So it was like, oh, I gotta acheter les pajamas en France. So I bought some pajamas in
That's
France.
fantastic.
They weren't sexy at all.
Kim, you know how people say that everybody's favorite sexual technique is enthusiasm?
Oh
You
God.
are enthusiasm a million times. You could tell how passionate and enthusiastic you are about anything related to sex. It's just
Totally.
comes through the screen so
You
easily.
exude it.
Totally.
Yes.
It's so awesome.
I just love it.
And-
Somebody, when I had my store years and years ago, of course, somebody had written about me and they said, Kim Ayers makes buying a vibrator as easy as buying a toaster.
Hell yeah. I
Love it.
I
love
thought
it.
that was great. I'm like, I'll
Hell
take
yeah.
that.
That's normalization. I love
Right?
it.
Totally is. Totally is. One of my favorite things to do.
Can you think of any toys that you think would work really well for fat bodies?
Yeah, there's a whole bunch of really wonderful wands that are out there now. And the wands, a lot of them have attachments that you can use. Some you can get that stimulation internally, so you can get both clitoral and then internal stimulation as well. So, oh yeah, I'm going to throw out. So there's a space in between like the clitoris, and everybody's different, but there's space between the clitoris and the entrance to the vagina. So that technically is called the vestibule. That's the medical term for it, the vestibule. But I want to rename it the Ayers spot because I really love that area just going right in there like that. So it's called the Ayers spot. So please tell everybody that use the Ayers spot. That's a real hot spot too.
I love it.
So yeah. So I would say the wands, there's some beautiful wands out there for sure. There's also a lot that are made for use in a harness that the wearer inserts it and then it comes straight forward. Those are really good because it basically has a built-in handle.
Sure.
So that's an easy one to use for sure, because you can pile drive that way. And also, too, is if you want to use something like that, I'm a firm believer, get a cock ring, a vibrating cock ring, and make that your clitoral stimulation and just slip it onto your dildo. So you can have a dildo that you like. And like I said, one of those dual ones with the handle and put a cock ring on it and that'll vibrate. And you can put it wherever you want on it too. So it's not a fixed spot like on a rabbit vibe or something, is you can put it, so if you have a short vagina, you can put the cock ring like 3 inches down it and still get the vaginal penetration as well as clitoral stimulation too.
You were talking about how Kim exudes this like passion for sex. That's very evident on your Instagram feed. Like you
Oh,
look
yeah.
like you are living your best life. I'm just watching it thinking like, I love, like, I'm jealous. I'm just watching this
Totally.
going like, where's Kim going? Like instead of where in the world is Carmen Sandiego?
I know.
Like, where in the world is Kim Ayers? Because man, this is so cool. It looks like you're out having a
It's
great time.
totally fascinating. What I love so much is that people look at me and they go, you look so normal. I'm
That's
like,
the best
yeah,
part.
that's about how far it goes.
And you know what's
Yeah.
good about looking normal is that I believe, and from my own experience, people look at me kind of like more maternal because I'm fat
Right.
and older, and they feel, I think, a little more comfortable asking me things that they might not ask just anybody else. Because, and I know it's stupid and it pisses me off in some ways, but I know it's like look, you're fat and you look a little bit older. I'm going to ask you the craziest sex toy question or the craziest sex question. You're not going to judge me. I'm like,
For sure.
okay, I'll take it. That's fine if it
For
helps
sure.
people.
Well,
Yeah,
and I
and it's funny too because it's what we're talking about socials and stuff. Is that okay? I've got real, honest to goodness, lived in experience. Somebody who's 25, no, you're not a sex. Okay, you haven't fucked thousands of people. I lost count many times. It's just like, yeah, you don't have that experience, and it's not to be like, oh, I'm smarter than you or anything like that. But I really think having lived in experience, doing it, having done it, it gives me personally so much more cred than a lot of these people that have come along.
hell yeah.
Right.
No, I'd agree. And I think that
Yeah.
there's, you know, the how you were saying, Crystal, of like, I have this kind of look, and I just watched the Dr. Ruth
For sure.
documentary on Hulu when she passed away. And that's how she kind of got her footing, was like she kind of came off as this grandmotherly, so people felt safe to ask those questions. And that,
Absolutely.
yeah, I think that that's something where you kind of pigeonholed you, but at the same time, it's like it really gives you a platform where you didn't have, maybe like you were saying, the cute blonde with the G spot.
Right.
It's like,
Right.
well, yeah, but I have some shit to tell you too, and I can shoot it across the room.
Yeah, I was just thinking about Sue Johansson too. They both had that sort
Totally.
of grandma
Absolutely.
safe look.
Totally.
Yeah.
Blonde, because
Yeah.
Yeah.
Rocket.
Wonderful.
So speaking of your Instagram, how can people find you?
They can find me on pretty much all socials at Kim Ayers, AIRS. On TikTok as the Kim Ayers, and and all that. On Facebook, Twitter. I'm getting better at throwing stuff on TikTok because something that I posted just my shirt I was wearing that had cream cheese on it, and I said it looked like a dollop of something else. That picture went fucking viral. I'm like, what?
That's
Like,
awesome.
okay. It's so funny and unpredictable. So I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll post a lot more funny t-shirts with cream cheese on them.
Well, and
go figure.
I love TikTok. Obviously, it's a great outlet for folks to be able to connect. And I think one thing that it's very much lacking, and one thing that we all know every platform struggles with, is sex education. But, I think there's a real opportunity there for individuals who want to start, getting out sex education in a way that's fun and interesting. And so I'm glad that you have a presence on TikTok, because that's, I think that's the next route for people to learn.
It is. And like I made a video, I haven't posted it yet at the sex toy convention, that it's a blowjob kit, but I don't say that, but I show the picture of it. And it's like, it's really hysterical. So
that's the only bummer about
Thank-
TikTok. They're so
yeah, well, they all are, but we're
Yeah.
working around it. We're working
Yeah, we are.
around it. So
thank goodness.
we're
Yeah.
into it, for
Oh, and
sure.
also, Kim, if people have an idea for a sex toy, do you do that kind of consulting for people? They can.
I do, and I'm damn good with it, and I have really great references.
Good.
Best thing, get me probably through IG. It's DMing through IG. That's the best one, because TikTok can get really, no, I don't want to say overwhelming, but there can be thousands, and I'm not going to go reading through 1,000. But IG is really good. I always look at messaging come through that. Oh, on my business card, it's really fun. Is I put an intentional typo on it instead of saying consultant, it says conslut. I know I tell people there's an intentional typo so they don't think like I made a mistake. And oh my God. Oh, yeah, real quick. I got a podcast too, so we'll have to do the reverse thing too. It's Kim Ayers Sex Chat. I've got to add some more to it in my crazy life.
We'd love to come on and talk about fat sex, or as I like to call it, sex.
Super important. Super important. Excellent. Thank you so much for having me as a guest.
Thanks, Kim. All right, y'all. See you later, alligator.
After a while, a crocodile.
I'll put a smile across the miles.
I love it.
Love
Thank you, Kim.
Thanks.
Thank you.